I didn't say a word when the HOA president and her little entourage stood outside my garage, clipboard in hand, so seeing that my unauthorized vehicle was being towed. I just pressed the remote, watched the heavy steel door slide down, and heard the click of the lock echo like a final sentence. They banged on the panels and yelled something about community regulations. But I already had my phone out, calmly dialing the sheriff's office. When the deputy arrived 15 minutes later, the sight of the HOA's tow truck idling in front of my closed garage was all he needed to see. I didn't even have to raise my voice. I simply pointed to my deed, the boundary map, and the clause they'd conveniently ignored. The deputy's tone shifted immediately. "Ma'am," he told the president, "if you touch that garage again, you're trespassing on private property." Her face drained of color, and I finally exhaled. It had taken months to reach this point, but in that moment, I knew I'd already won. When I first moved into this neighborhood, I wasn't looking for trouble. I'd retired early from construction work, saved up enough to finally buy a place that was quiet, practical, and mine. The house sat at the edge of the subdivision, 3 bedrooms, a detached garage, and a patch of land that bordered the county's undeveloped greenbelt. It wasn't fancy, but it was freedom. I'd spent 30 years fixing other people's houses, so I wanted a place where I could tinker, rebuild old engines, and maybe restore the '74 Chevy C10 my dad left me. Most mornings were slow and perfect. Coffee on the porch, the sound of birds instead of traffic, and the smell of oil and pine from the garage. The HOA seemed like background noise at first. A few newsletters, a welcome letter, some friendly reminders about lawn height. I didn't think much of it. I'd paid my fees, followed the rules, and stayed polite. I wasn't trying to stand out or start a fight. But peace, as I learned, doesn't last long when control is someone else's hobby. It started with a note taped to my door. "Unauthorized vehicle on property. Must be removed within 72 hours. No name, no explanation. Just that. I walked to the garage confused, half expecting to find some stranger's car parked there. But it was just my truck, my old C10 sitting quietly behind a closed door, not visible from the street, not leaking oil, not breaking a single rule I knew of. I thought it had to be a mistake, maybe some mix-up from their system. So I called the HOA office. The woman on the line sounded polite enough, until she wasn't. "Sir, all vehicles on the premises must be registered and operable." I explained that it was operable, registered in my name, and fully insured. She said, "Classic vehicles are not permitted for storage in visible areas." I told her it was in a private garage. Her tone sharpened. "We'll send an inspector to confirm." That's when I realized it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a test. And I failed by not being afraid. A week later, I got another letter, this time a formal violation notice with a $250 fine. The reason? Unauthorized mechanical work conducted within residential premises. I laughed out loud. They were fining me for using my own tools in my own garage. I sent an email attaching the HOA by highlighting the section that specifically allowed routine maintenance on personal vehicles within enclosed private structures. No reply. Instead, 2 days later, they raised the fine and added a threat of further enforcement action, including towing. It was absurd. My neighbors started avoiding eye contact. Apparently, word had spread that I was arguing with the board. When I tried to attend a monthly HOA meeting to clarify things, they wouldn't even let me speak. The president, a woman named Donna who spoke like she was running a kingdom, told me, "We have visual confirmation of violations. The matter is closed." That was the moment I stopped trying to explain and started preparing. I spent nights reading, not just their bylaws, but the county zoning code, the original property deeds, and public access records. What I discovered made my blood run cold and then hot. The HOA boundary map didn't actually include my garage. The entire structure sat 6 feet outside their recorded jurisdiction, thanks to an easement adjustment filed by the previous owner in 1998. That little line on a document meant the HOA had no legal right to enforce a single rule on it. But I didn't tell them that, not yet. I wanted every one of their threats documented, every fine saved, every email ignored. I even installed cameras facing my driveway, just in case. My son thought I was being paranoid. I told him I was just keeping receipts. In truth, I was setting the stage for something cleaner than revenge-proof. Things escalated fast. I caught their so-called compliance officer photographing my garage from the sidewalk. When I stepped outside and asked what he was doing, he stammered something about evidence for board review. I smiled, told him to keep the photos, they'd look great in court. He left without another word. The next day, I came home to find a bright orange sticker on my garage door. Towing scheduled violation of community standards. They'd crossed the line literally and legally. So I printed copies of every document I had. The deed, the survey, the zoning map, the 1998 easement order. I put them in a folder labeled Property Rights, Exhibits EII. And I waited. When the tow truck showed up, I was sitting inside the garage with my truck, coffee in hand. The HOA president strutted up the driveway like she was leading an army. "We're removing the vehicle per association authority," she declared. Loud enough for neighbors to hear. I just pressed the button on the remote. The garage door descended, and the world went quiet. A few seconds later, her fists hit the door. "You can't hide from enforcement," she shouted. I called the sheriff and explained calmly that a private organization was attempting to seize property from a structure outside their jurisdiction. The dispatcher didn't even hesitate. "We'll send someone right away." When the deputy arrived, he took one look at my paperwork, then turned to Donna. "Ma'am, do you have legal authority over this parcel?" She tried to bluff her way through it, mumbling, "Abode community rules." He stopped her cold. "This garage isn't under HOA authority. You're trespassing and attempting unlawful seizure. I suggest you leave." "Before I start taking statements," you could have heard a pin drop. She walked away without a word. The HOA's lawyer called me the next day, suddenly polite, asking if we could resolve this misunderstanding. I told him there was no misunderstanding, just a pattern of harassment, trespassing, and attempted property seizure. I mentioned I'd already filed a complaint with the county attorney's office and was preparing a civil claim for damages. 2 days later, I got an email from the board stating that after careful review, all violations and fines were being rescinded. A week after that, Donna resigned from her position as president. The new board quietly rewrote several of their rules, including the one about vehicle storage. And just like that, the emails stopped. The letters stopped. The cameras stopped showing strange cars idling by my curb. Now, when I back my truck out of the garage, the same neighbors who once pretended not to see me just wave awkwardly. Some of them even apologize under their breath, as if they'd been part of something they didn't fully understand. I don't hold grudges, but I don't forget either. I still have that orange towing sticker framed above my workbench here. Reminder that silence, patience, and the right piece of paper can do more damage than shouting ever could. The HOA still exists, technically, but it's quieter now. No more patrols, no more threats, no more power games. Just a bunch of people finally minding their own business. And me. I still spend my mornings with coffee, tools, and the hum of that old truck engine. When I hear the garage door slide open, I still remember the day I closed it in their faces. The day they learned that not every homeowner rolls over when pushed. Some of us know how to read, how to wait, and how to end a war without raising our voices. Now, when I drive through the neighborhood, the air feels different. No more notes. No more rules. Just the sound of tires on gravel, steady and free. Either they wave or they turn away. Either way, it's quiet again.